is brought to you by
Sparkle Saloon. Professional, affordable, and quality services.
On this beautiful Sunday night, we are coming to you live from our Nile Serena studios. This is Perspective with Josephine Karunji.
Center in our room, and tonight we review or speak to the author of this book, Through the Fire, Mama Margaret Opolot, who has graciously enough agreed to come and share her story or just bits and answer some questions on how all of this happened. I was reading this book and most of it is unbelievable. So I'm very glad that she's here to talk to us about it. Welcome, Mama Margaret.
Thank you very much.
All right. And Mama Margaret came along with a friend, Karen Hapuch Ibiera, who is works with the Women Platform online, and also it's an organization on its own called Make Modern Noise, and it encourages survivors of domestic violence to speak out and share their stories. Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having
Karen.
me. Thank
I
you.
can call you Karen.
Yes, that's absolutely fine.
Oh, all right. So let's say it as it is and start the program. Right. So like I said before, when I was reading the book, most of it was unbelievable, and I kept thinking to myself, how did she get to this point? And Karen said the same thing. She didn't believe the story until she actually, got to the end of it and met you. So just for our viewers who are watching, just could you briefly tell us about your story?
Thank you very much, Josephine. Maybe before I get there, can I introduce myself?
Yes, please.
My name is Mama Opolot Margaret Monday. They prefer calling me that way. I made 65 years of age last week. I have 4 grown-up children and 10 grandchildren. By the mercies of God, I am retired now, but by the mercies of God, I've been able to work in the public and private sector, diplomatic missions, including the United Nations. But above all that, I am a born-again Christian, which is Christ in me, the hope of glory. You are asking me about the book. This is a book I never wanted to share with the world. Because when it happened, I was still a young woman. To be very specific, between the age of 28 and 35. And when it happened, I didn't want to share it with the world because of the content. It's dirty, it's full of shame, a lot of regret. If I were to turn back the hand of time, I would never have chosen the path that I chose. I said the book is dirty because I made a choice of a man whom I thought or knew I loved, and it didn't take 6 months before the real person came into play. By that time, I was already pregnant with the first child into marriage.
His child?
His child now. I had another child before that. But within 6 months, it came into play. And I think it was really inferiority complex. That's what I think. I don't know. I can't describe it any further. But when a man batters you, and he would pick anything at his disposal, be it a knife, a panga, whatever it was. He battered me, broke my arm, made to shave my hair with a broken bottle, And when I'm unconscious, because that's the level of battering and beating, before I am unconscious, it's like he would never leave me. And he would beat me to a point where I am numb, so much so that I would not feel pain. I think that is the point of death. And at that point, that is when he sexually abuses me. You will ask me, how would you know? Because when you come around, you know how your body is, and you will know what has happened. But this is what this man would do, and as blood is oozing out of my body, he would collect it and drink it. And that is why I'm saying it is dirty, and it's a story I never wanted to share with the world, especially with my children, because I was scared. How am I going to tell my girl child that this is the choice that I made? How naive could I have been? And how could I, every time this man battered me and I ran home, I left and went to my parents, and my parents would even be, especially, my father would be willing to give him back his cows. By the way, he paid 20 cows for me. That's a lot of cows. And so I think he considered me his possession. But every time I ran and went back home, and he came crawling on his knees, crying, asking for forgiveness, I would find myself back in his arms. And it doesn't take a month before he does the same thing again. Oh yes, it is a book I never wanted to share.
There have been stories that have been told of women being battered. It's usually very difficult to get a victim of domestic violence to actually come to a TV station and speak openly, showing their face and allowing for their voice to be heard. But while we've heard all these stories before, I think what hit me when I was reading the book was him drinking your blood, and then the aspect that he was a witch doctor. And the question that you said most people asked, and that I also then ask, is how did this happen? When I read your journey, you are a young, educated woman, high flyer, great job in Nairobi. You come back to Uganda. You're the belle of the village, and out of the blue.
Well, again, I think this goes back to our parents, because I met this man, like you said. I came back from Nairobi. I was the belle of the village. I was the upcoming girl. I had what it took. In Nairobi, I had kind of made it. I'd made my money. And I come back in the village, and I was being viewed as such. I had the money, and all the time, you'd have people coming home. So my mother was like, actually both of them, my mother and my father, that as many people as come to this home, not all of them are coming genuinely. Some of them are jealous. And then this man, he was known for giving protective charms. Yes, protective charms. And on that particular occasion, there was a young man who was sick in our village, and they had brought him to, to kind of treat that particular boy. And so my mother said, we need to go. It was very expensive. First of all, for him to perform such acts to you, you had to have very many cows. You had to be a very rich person, because his fee was quite astronomous. And so my mom said we needed to go and consult with him. And so this man used to do his things in the middle of the night, precisely at midnight. And so we were there at about 11 o'clock. And so we go. And by the way, this man outside the witchcraft, he's a very handsome man. He was a real dude. And yes, yes, that is the absolute truth. So, but we went there in the night, in the middle of the night, and then he closes the door. It was a hut where we were in. He closed the door, and then I don't know how many people, know the church setting. You start by praising and worshiping God, and that is exactly what was being done there. They were singing and clapping their hands. I didn't know the songs. And then after about 15, 20 minutes, there was a big bang at the door. And something came in, what I call the beast. By the way, before that, this Mr. Mandwa, that was his name. Before all this happens, there are things that he performs. And one of the things that he did was, there was some gadget with so many bells. So when this thing came and hit the door in the darkness, because they turned off the light, it picked up that thing, and we could hear the light from on top of the roof, and he's shaking it, and he's audibly talking. And he was speaking in Luganda.
This is Mr. Mandwa or the beast?
No, the beast. I call it the beast.
Okay.
Okay. You hear him audibly. You cannot see, but you hear audibly. And he spoke in Luganda. And he was like Mulimutia Panafe, something like that. I'm not very good in Luganda, but he spoke in Luganda. And Mr. Mandwa was very fluent in Luganda. For those people who never understood, he would translate. So he would speak either in Luganda or in Swahili. And after all that was done, it called me by my name. And I almost peed on myself, because I couldn't understand how something could know who I am.
It said Margaret.
Margaret, why are you afraid? In Luganda, Otidechi, something like that. Something like that. And I was so scared. I held my mother so tightly. But anyway, to cut the long story short, that was the beginning of it. Then it is said, I want to call it it. It is said, if they don't do anything about it, I am going to die, because not everybody in the village was happy about me. So that was my first encounter with this dude.
So the dude then kept coming to visit you at home, at work, bringing flowers and...
No, there were no flowers.
Okay. Bringing cassava and things and...
No, there were no flowers, but he would, bring chicken. He would go for grocery in a basket, bread, sugar, lotion, chicken. Yeah, and he would package it and send it to my place of work. And that took just about a month. Okay. And then he told me he was in love with me.
And he said he wanted to marry you.
And he said he wanted to marry me.
And you said?
And I said yes.
Okay. Okay. So I know that there's a point in the book at which you say, you sort of hinted, you didn't really say, but you hinted that something must have happened in that hut. Because when you look at the rest of the book and then you look at yourself, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense how you ended up where you did.
I must tell you, Josephine, the first instance this thing happened, I was so scared. I told you I almost peed on myself. But subsequently, as this man continued coming home, that fear kind of vanished. It disappeared. After that night, I had told my mother, I have nothing to do with this. I will not have this. But when he continued coming, the fear had disappeared. And everything seemed to be so normal. Because when he comes home, he is dressed like a human being, like a dude.
So you went and got married. So you suspect something, maybe a charm or a spell or something was placed on you?
I don't have any other explanation, because looking back, although this is a very contentious issue, the issue about witchcraft, the issue about charms, people have different perspectives. But in my particular incident, I do believe, because as a believer now in Jesus Christ, I do know the devil is well and alive, and he will do miracles. And the Bible says, if it was not for elect, even the elect would be deceived. So if he did the spell, I wouldn't be surprised, because Satan is alive. The only thing is, God is almighty.
So you went ahead to get married. What did your parents say? Your family?
My father especially, when I told them that I was getting married, I mean, first of all, my father started wondering why this man was coming home more frequently. And like any other parent, I'm sure he started sensing that there must be something going on. But when I eventually told them that I was getting married, and this was the person I was getting married to, my father told me categorically that, my daughter, I know you are a big girl, and I know you must get married, but I did not know, I did not think you were this desperate. I considered that an insult at that point.
Do you think now when you turned 65 last week, right, that parents see things that we do not see?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, today it is a bit difficult and more complicated with the .com era, because where you meet, people meet at universities, they meet at places of work, they meet everywhere. And sometimes it's very difficult for parents to know. But having said that, I still do believe that especially a girl, because my heart is out for the girl, not because I love boys less. But when you see somebody is getting serious, or you've gone out with someone for a couple of days or months, and you see the trend where it is going, I think it's absolutely of utmost importance that you share this with your parents, especially the mother, because they will start asking questions. Who is he? Where do they come from? And this and the other. And the reason they ask is not to stop you, but because they want to see your future, that actually what you are getting into is something viable. And they will be able to see it better than you, because you who is in the mix, they normally say love is blind, and actually it covers your eyes. What you see today is not what you will see tomorrow. Some people take a longer time to manifest. In the case of my husband, I don't know whether to call him a husband, but he was my husband. He married me. It was 6 months before the devil in him came out. Other people will take maybe even 2 years. So I tell the girl child, just take your time. Take your time.
But also because this audience is mostly filled with men, I feel they're feeling left out. Do you want to say something to them?
Yes. The boys, to me now as a Christian, I do know that according to the Bible, men are supposed, they are supposed to steer a home. But you cannot steer a home unless you have got a foundation. By the way, I love you baby boys so much, because I would like you to be better than what, I mean, because you have a sister, the person who gave birth to you is a woman. You have a sister, you have a cousin, and definitely you don't want your sister to go through what I went through. So if you don't want your sister to go through what I went through, then don't do that mix to somebody else's baby girl.
Well, let's take a short break and we'll be right back.
Salons. We offer professional barber, hairdressing at Lugogo Mall, Garden City, Forest Mall, Oasis Mall, and Acacia Mall. Sparkle Saloon. Professional, affordable, and quality services.
Welcome back. We are coming to you from the Kampala Serena Conference Center Nile Room, and we're speaking to Mama Margaret, who is sharing her story, and she came along with Karen Hapuchibiara, who works with Make Modern Noise, a women's platform that gives room for survivors to share their stories. So Karen has been quiet for a while now, but I'm going to allow you to speak. We want to hear a bit more about Mama Margaret's story before we get into more of domestic violence. Mama, at what point did the violence actually begin? So there's always reasons for the violence. There's the financial aspect, there's the, maybe he feels you're not, and I'm told it's a disciplinary measure in some regions. What was the excuse or the explanation for this one?
Who would explain, apart from what I think? At what point? As I said, it was less than 6 months. In 6 months, the real person came out. And the incident, I remember that very well. He came in, by the way, I went into a polygamous marriage. Stupid as I am, sorry, I didn't say that. But he already had another wife. And so he used to be, 3 days here, 4 days there, and that kind of thing. So this night he comes in around about 9:30 in the night. I, as a pregnant woman, I had gone to bed early, and I was fast asleep. So he knocks, and when I open the door, he comes straight and hits me real hard. It is like I was in a dream. And I mean, as I was still wondering what was going on, he asked me, who has run out? There were 2 doors. There was the main door and the back door. And he claims as he was knocking, I opened for someone to run out. And I told him there was no one. Now, for him, his problem was always I had another man. And that is what even led him to shave my hair with a broken bottle. At another point, he comes to the office and he finds a male worker standing in front of me, and he started a fight right there in the office, because everybody male to him was a problem. So as far to answer your question, this man was super jealous. Maybe, I don't know whether to call it super jealous, because it was more than that. Words fail me to describe. And because for me, I was like the affluent one, and I think he felt insecure. That's what I think. I think he felt insecure, and that led him to stop me from work, took me away, burnt all my certificates, my academic certificates, and everything, my clothing, nothing.
You reported him to the police at a certain point when it had gotten a bit much, but he was released.
Absolutely. And that is where I have a problem with the powers that are supposed to protect us, because at this particular incident again, he had battered me real bad. Actually, I was carried to the police. I didn't even go there by myself because I didn't have the strength. I was carried there and then referred to the hospital, treated, and we came back to the police, and after investigation, they preferred a case of attempted murder against him. He was arrested. He stayed in the police cell for 3 days. The fourth day he was supposed to have been taken to court. That is the day we were going to court. I go to the police, and we find he had been released. When I went to the OCCID to ask him about the case, what was going on, he told me, you need to go and sort out your issue with your husband. Good women don't take their men to jail.
Oh, wow. I think that's a great point for you to come in at, Karen. Your organization, how many stories close to this? I'm sure you don't get that many where blood is being drunk, but how many close to the battering and cases reported at the police and nothing happens do you get?
I mean, so far, this campaign called Make Modern Noise was launched in September last year, and about maybe 9 survivors have actually reached out and tried to tell their stories. And just yesterday, we had a model cast because we're having a fashion show at the book launch of this very book. And 3 of the models came out to talk to me and said, can we meet the author of this book? So I said, yeah, absolutely. There's something that we wanted to talk about. One of them is a young man whose father is abusive. And so I told him, you know, there is a way you can actually report him without being anonymously. Actually, you can report him. And he was very scared. It's like, I have tried to do this so many times, but nothing has happened. I have actually run to the police. And something close to what Mama has just said, that the police officer told her that good women actually don't take their husbands to court, which is something I don't think anyone should ever say to someone, because I think violence as an act should not be tolerated at any form, or it doesn't matter if it's regarding to a woman or a child, or yeah.
You spoke about the exchange of cows, so 20 cows were exchanged, and I know later in the book when you went back home and said, I'm done, and your parents said, let's give him back his cows, and they collected them. And eventually when you agreed to go back to him, they penalized him with, was it 2 cows?
2 more.
2 cows.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought the 2 cows, and once again,
I went back.
you went back.
I was in love. So I thought.
Okay. Tell me a bit about the culture, the role that it had in this situation.
Well, apart from my father, my 2 uncles, and 1 particular cousin. When this man came home crawling, actually he had been home for a number of days, and he was repenting, he was on his knees, he was crying, and he said if they did not give me back to him, he was going to build a home, a hut in our home, in our compound. He wasn't going anywhere. So, some people, the culture, they said, and by that time I was now pregnant with the second child with him. And some people were like, I mean, what is she going to do with the children? That is now culture and society. I mean, she has already given birth, and you know, he has given us his cows. There is no way, you know, if he has repented, you know, yeah, go back. You know, go and look after your children. Because can you imagine another woman looking after your child? Something like that. And that boosted my ego because, I mean, the man had repented. The man was so much in love. And by the way, this man, whenever he beat me and took me back, he would kill a whole cow for me to eat. That comes out in 2 ways. It was a celebration that she's back, let's celebrate and all eat a cow, the whole compound, or you alone eat the cow. No, I mean, no, of course he would, it was a celebration, everybody would come, but I mean, his specialty to me was the liver. He would make sure that a whole liver is fried really very well for me to eat. Yeah.
At the end of your book, you speak about how your children have turned out. You talk about your two girls who are high flyers, and you speak about the two boys who have taken to drugs and alcohol. Do you ever think back and think, because I know one of them, the first child, who is not his, was older and possibly saw what was happening. Do you think any of these circumstances played a part in their lives?
This is my own analysis. It is not a golden, it's not a law, it's not anything I've researched. But I do tend to think that boys normally need a fatherhead. Why? I have no idea. But when my boy children, I gave them everything, because I mean, all of them went through university education. And by that time, remember, after all the violence, and I came and, you know, God enabled me to be able to, you know, to start working in high profile offices. I could afford. And I sent them, all of them, through university education, you know, schools such as St. Mary's Kisubi, you know, Nabisunsa girls, that's where my girls went. One girl, the last born, went to Gayaza High School, and the last born went to St. Mary's Kisubi, the other one went to Mwiri. Now, later on, I kept on asking myself, where did I fail? And I have no answer. But because there was no male figurehead, I tend to give my excuse that maybe if there was a male, if there was a fatherhead, maybe they would not have turned out to be like this. But again, that argument is defeated because there are children out there with both parents together, and they are into alcoholism, into drugs and everything. So Josephine, I really don't know why. It saddens me, it pains me after all the pain that I took to try and raise up these children, that my boy children turned out to be who they are.
All right. Well, let's take another short break and we'll be right back. Kampala Serena Conference Center, Nile Room. Karen, you wanted to say something about domestic violence?
Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development quoted that 49% of women agree with domestic violence and 41% of men do agree with domestic violence. If I run back to what Mama said about parents being, the question you asked about parents being involved in the children's lives, I think back then also it's happening now, the way that society is bringing up children, even the parents are bringing out children, in that girls are made to do so many things and the men or the male child is not doing so much. Maybe girls do more of the housework, and then the guys would think it's okay for the girls to do this. I think issues like this actually contribute more to men being more so entitled and more tendencies of domestic violence. So I just wanted to hint at something about that, yeah.
All right. Someone else in the audience also had asked you, Mama, about the relationship between domestic violence and marriage, and you were saying something interesting. I'd like you to say it to the people at home that are listening.
Yeah, I was saying I wouldn't want to connect domestic violence and marriage. The reason being, marriage is made by two people. So I think the connection is the two people. We should focus on the two people, the boy and the girl who are getting into marriage. Because marriage in itself, I do believe it is honorable. It's an institution that was created by God. It's a honorable one, and it is one I would desire to see my children in a healthy institution. But I also know that the package of domestic violence was not part of that deal. So it really depends on the two people who are getting into the marriage institution. But otherwise, marriage as it stands, it is a honorable thing.
You wanted, at a certain point, the whole deal. You wanted the marriage and your children and you later had, after this particular season, the reason for this book, you met someone else who you had your last child with.
Yes.
But then he made you choose.
Yeah. First of all, when I got out of this marriage, I told myself I am done. But remember, I told you I left the marriage at the age of 35. By the time I got to 39, this is when this person came into my life. I was tired, you know, of the stereotype. Go to work, come back home, and I worked, and I made sure I worked until my life became so, you know, it was so boring. So I met this person, and for 2 years, you know, he kept on trying to prove that he's different. When the baby came, my last child now, he was good, I must say. David was a very good man, because he took me in with my crowd. Not many, yeah, three children
and 2 brothers.
And 2 brothers, so those were 5. And I can understand what he was going through. But he was there for us, and he helped me even pay school fees. Now, the time came when we needed to formalize this into a marriage. And I think also friends, his family and whatever, kept on talking to him now. How could you take a woman with all that baggage? And I can understand that. So he gave me a choice. He told me, I understand the father of these children, my 3 children, they are, I mean, he's dead, but surely they do have relatives. If you want me, if you want to settle down with me, you send these children back to their parents. And that was a condition for me to get married to him. It will be an understatement for me to say that was a very painful decision. And I told myself, if ever I were to leave my children, I would never forgive myself. Because if I suffered the escape, if you read that book, I escaped with my children through real hardship. And now I come to this point and I am willing to let them go because of a man. I chose my children. I told David, you know, you are a wonderful person. I will not hold you. I looked for a house, packed myself, my belongings and my children, and I went. I left David and I told him, get yourself a wife.
Wow. I'm going to take you back to Mr. Mandwa.
I wish you wouldn't.
Is there a part of you that wishes he was still alive to see the woman you've become?
No way. No, I don't care. And actually, he's now dead. The Bible says, I mean, I shouldn't rejoice at anybody's death, but I do believe my husband died because of the wrath of God, and thank God he died.
We're laughing now, but I think you guys are laughing because you've not read this book. If you read it, you won't laugh. You'll probably be crying half the time. What do you ever look back and ask yourself what kept you there?
That's the $1 million question. I don't know. I am just wondering, how did I spend 6 years with this man? But I'll tell you something. There was something inside me that thought I was in love. Because whenever, and I told you, this man was very handsome, by the way. Very handsome guy. And he had his money. I mean, he was a businessman. He had his money. And whenever I kept on having hope against hope, that, you know, when he comes and he says he's sorry, I thought he was indeed really sorry. So, but it came to a point I had to realize that this was never gonna stop. And I made up my mind. And I walked away.
How did you speak to your children about this and say, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to tell all in this book, and your friends are probably going to be looking at you and saying, hey, your mother. How did you have this conversation and what did they say?
As I said, the girl children, the boys, they don't care. They really, they don't care. And I don't think I was so concerned about them when I realized they really didn't care. The problem was with the girl child, because here is a girl, has been through university, has got friends, the .com like you who are sitting there, and then like you say, that is your mother. So I had a conversation before picking a pen and paper, and I told my daughter, after talking to her and telling her this is what happened, and then she tells me, Mommy, I would never choose another mother. You are my hero. Just go right ahead. Somebody needs to hear that. If you went through what you went through so that one person would not make the mistake that you made, it will be worth it. It is okay. She's married, she's got 3 children, and they live in the US as I talk right now.
And your other daughter?
Yeah, the last daughter. She's now 27. She did international relations, majoring in conflict resolution. I don't know if she would have been able to resolve my conflict. But yeah, she's the last born, and you know, she's a very principled girl, and she's an angel. You know, she does what she knows how to do best. Yeah.
So you had Mr. Mandwa, there was David at the end, but then there's the father of your first child, where the story began in Nairobi. It seems you've had your share of, I don't know if it's bad luck, what should I call it?
I don't know. In my life, I wanted to be the perfect wife. I wanted a home, an ideal home, a husband, and my children. But it looks like fate did not give me the chance to do that, because in Nairobi, that's another story.
Let's not tell them the whole story. But the one thing I remember about that story is you coming back home with your babe to your house, to the apartment, and finding it clean, with the maid standing there holding the baby.
Yeah. That is true, because first of all, when I got pregnant, after chasing me for about 3 years, as a young girl, that was the first man I had in my life. After chasing me for 3 years, I got saved when I was in primary 7. And when I went to Nairobi, I was still a born-again Christian. He is the one who made me backslide, because after chasing me, he came to church when he realized I couldn't respond. He came to church, and when an altar call was made, he went and gave his life to Christ. He went and gave his life to Christ, and after 6 months, he started giving me the lifts again, and I was like, okay, the brother is now born again, and why should I mean, what God has made clean, why should I say it's unclean? And I said, we must tell the pastor. In that process, you know, of taking me home and, you know, this and the other, one thing led to the other, and before I knew it, I was pregnant. When I discovered I was pregnant and I'm telling him I'm pregnant, he didn't want to know, he didn't want to hear. And then after that, I went through the pregnancy, I gave birth. He comes to the hospital when I was now giving birth from 9 months, 9 months down the line. He comes to the hospital with flowers, and then he comes to pick us. Then he comes to pick us to take me home. He gets an apartment, and I was like, oh my God. I went back to his hands again, and the reason I did that, because I was a virgin, I never thought there was another man who was going to look at me after that with a baby. So I go back to him, and after a while, I waited for him to pick me from work. He didn't come. I called the office. We did not have mobile phones at that time. I was told he had not worked. 6 p.m. I decided to take a matatu. I get home. I find the house clean. The guy had packed and left.
Before you actually give your remarks, your closing remarks, Karen.
Yes.
From your work with all of these women with stories like this, what would you like to tell the men, the women out there?
First of all, I would like to just encourage survivors out there. Tell your story. You don't know who it might touch. You don't know who is going through the same thing. And I would like to also call out to maybe the males, the females, like if you're in relationships, please learn to respect one another. If you're having issues, talk about them. Please don't rush to beat someone, lash out. Always talk about it. And also coming back on the point of speaking out against abuse, there's so many survivors that have reached out and said, I want to tell you my story. I want to come out. I'm going through so many things, but I'm scared that maybe my dad will not pay my tuition anymore. They'll chase me out of the house. There are actually services that could help you. So please don't be scared to speak out.
All right.
Yeah.
Mama Margaret.
What I've told you is a tip in the iceberg. If you read this book, again, it's not everything, but it will at least give you 75% of what I went through. I decided to come out, and the reason why I came out, not because I wanted to advertise myself, because as you realize, it's not a story that I'm proud of, but I've come out to try and help somebody out there. I do know it doesn't matter whether you're educated, whether you are rich or poor, whatever category you are, domestic violence is real, and it comes in all forms. That could be physical, but even the mental and emotional trauma that you go through is beyond what words can describe. So I will be launching this book on the 1st of March at Coastview Towers, Yusuf Lule Road. And I am expecting, especially those in this room, all of you to come and hear more. Come and hear more, and the book will be there on sale. My dedication is to reach you, to reach the boy, to reach the girl. If only one, just one, can be saved because I was, that will be worth it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mama Margaret, for coming to speak with us. This is my copy. And thank you so much, Karen, for coming with Mama Margaret. I know it couldn't have been easy to sit in front of a group of people and speak about a particularly painful. How many years was it? 28 to 35?
Yeah, 28 to 35.
Yeah, it can't have been an easy number of years. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much to our studio audience for participating and being around for the show. We'd like to end the show, and coming up is NTV Weekend Edition with Sandra Twinodio.
Monthly basic bouquet subscription of 18,000 shillings before it expires. Then enjoy 3 free days only on StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.